My sister deleted my college applications and told our parents I was too irresponsible to succeed. They believed her without question, urging me to give up. But when I showed them the truth, my mom froze, and my dad couldn't say a word. It didn't hit like some movie scene with dramatic music or a sinking feeling in my gut. No, it was just an ordinary Wednesday in Asheville, North Carolina, the kind that starts quiet and explodes without warning. If I'd known by evening I'd face their accusations in our living room, with my future hanging by a thread, I might have prepared better. But I didn't until the confrontation. Officers weren't involved, but the betrayal felt just as sharp. I stood there as they confronted me, my heart pounding, demanding I admit to slacking off. "Sophia Carter," Mom said sharply, her voice cutting through the tension. "You've let us down again." Dad nodded silently, avoiding my eyes. The room tensed as I realized this wasn't a mistake. It was deliberate sabotage. If you've ever been stabbed in the back by family, smashing your dreams in an instant, smash that like button, subscribe for more raw tales like mine, and comment your own story. You might save someone from the same pain. Our house in Asheville sat on a quiet street with views of the Blue Ridge Mountains, but inside it was always tense. Growing up as Sophia Carter, I learned early that Natalie Harper was the star. She came 3 years before me and somehow got everything right: perfect grades, confident smiles, the kind of kid who won awards without trying. My parents, Susan Clark and Kenneth Reed, poured their attention into her, like she was their only success. They owned a small hotel downtown filled with local art and cozy rooms for tourists. Natalie helped out front, charming guests, while I stayed in the back office, handling paperwork. When she brought home a mediocre report card, they celebrated her effort. When I aced tests, they said good job and moved on. It wasn't cruelty, just habit. They didn't see me unless I messed up, and even then it was quick disapproval. I tried harder, got straight A's, joined clubs, but it never stuck. Natalie cried once at a family dinner over a bad haircut, and they spent the evening comforting her. I broke my arm, falling off my bike at 11, and they told me to tough it out. The favoritism built like layers of paint you don't notice until it's too thick to ignore. Scout, my rescue dog, changed that a bit. Natalie begged for a pet when she was 14, making PowerPoint presentations about responsibility and companionship. Parents caved, bought Scout a fluffy mutt with big ears and endless energy. She loved him for a month, then complained he chewed her shoes and shed everywhere. They considered rehoming him, but I stepped in at 11, promising to handle everything. They shrugged and agreed, figuring it was easier. Scout chose me from day one, sleeping at my feet, following me around the house, tail wagging like I mattered. He listened when I talked about school or how Natalie borrowed my clothes without asking. In a home where I felt invisible, he made me feel seen. Vivian Porter, my aunt, lived a few miles away in a quirky cabin filled with books and herbal teas. She was the one adult who got it. Whenever things got heavy, I'd leash Scout and walk over. She'd make hot chocolate, listen to my rants about Natalie getting the new phone while I used hand-me-downs. Vivian didn't fix things, she just nodded and said, "You deserve better, kid." She was in her 50s, independent after divorcing, young, running a small gallery downtown. Her visits to our house were rare, but when she came, she always brought something for me, a book or sketchpad, ignoring Natalie's pouts. Natalie left for college 2 years ago to a state school nearby, studying business, to take over the hotel one day. The house echoed without her. Parents texted her, constantly worried about her adjustment. She came back after a semester saying campus life was overwhelming. No details, just vague complaints. She locked her door a lot, scrolled endlessly on her phone, had friends over at odd hours. I smelled weed from her room, heard slurred laughs, but didn't say anything. In our family, questioning meant stirring trouble. I noticed her hovering near my computer, pausing in my doorway, staring a second too long. I told myself it was paranoia. My senior year was focused on college apps. I dreamed of escaping to an Ivy League school with a scholarship for environmental science. I spent nights perfecting essays, researching programs. The deadline loomed, and I double-checked everything on the family desktop in the living room, the only computer we shared since mine crashed last month. Everything looked good. Or so I thought. The next morning, I logged in to submit. The applications were gone. Deleted. Not just one, all of them. My heart dropped as I searched recycle bin browser history. Nothing. Panic set in, hours of work vanished. I confronted Natalie first since she used the computer last night for homework. She leaned against the kitchen counter, sipping coffee, her hair in a messy bun. "What are you talking about?" she said, eyes wide innocent. "I didn't touch your stuff. You're always blaming me for your mistakes." Her voice had that edge, the one that made parents side with her instantly. I pushed back, saying someone did it and you were the last one on. She rolled her eyes, called me dramatic, and walked out. By afternoon, parents called a family meeting in the living room, the same spot where they praised Natalie's art projects as a kid, while mine collected dust. Susan sat straight-backed on the couch, Kenneth beside her, looking uncomfortable. Natalie lounged in the armchair, phone in hand. "Sophia," Susan started, "we've heard about the applications. Natalie told us you forgot to save them properly." "That's not true," I said, voice rising. "They were there last night, deleted this morning." "Natalie must have." Susan cut me off. "Don't accuse your sister. She's been helping with the hotel all week. You've been distracted lately, staying up late, acting forgetful." Kenneth nodded, adding, "School stress can make anyone slip up. We think it's best you accept this and apply to local community college instead. It's more realistic for you." I stared at them, mouth dry. Realistic? I'd worked for years, GPA 4.0, extracurriculars, letters of recommendation. This was my shot out. But they believed Natalie without proof, urging me to own the mistake for the family's sake. "If we make a big deal," Susan said, "it could embarrass us all. The hotel relies on our reputation." Natalie smirked slightly, then hid it. I argued, but they shut me down, sending me to my room like a child. Grounded essentially, no phone, no outings, just reflection on my irresponsibility. Scout whined at my door, sensing the tension. I paced the room, replaying the day. How could they side with her so fast? It hit me, this wasn't new. When Natalie crashed the car at 17, they blamed bad weather. When I dented the bumper at 16, they docked my allowance. Favoritism wasn't subtle anymore. It was a weapon. Alone in my room, I whispered to Scout, "We'll figure this out, boy." He tilted his head, ears perked as if agreeing. Vivian called that evening. I'd texted her before they took my phone. She listened, then said, "Sounds fishy, kid. Hang tight, I'll swing by tomorrow." Her voice steady calmed me, but anger simmered. They thought I'd roll over like always. They were wrong. Days blurred in isolation. Parents treated me like a disappointment, meals, silent glances disapproving. Natalie avoided me, but I caught her whispering to Susan, smiles shared. Kenneth tried small talk once, asking about homework, but backed off when I mentioned the apps. "We know it's hard," he said, "but taking blame builds character." "Character?" I snapped back. "What about truth?" He sighed, walked away. Scout was my lifeline, curling up on my bed during the long afternoons. I'd adopted him fully after Natalie ditched him, and now he repaid with loyalty, barking softly when voices raised downstairs. Vivian visited on day 3, bringing groceries and a hug. We sat on my bed, Scout between us. She asked details, and I spilled everything: the deleted files, Natalie's denial, parents' blind faith. Vivian's eyes narrowed. "Sounds like sabotage." "You have proof?" "Not yet," I said, "but the computer history might show something." She nodded, suggesting I check when they're out. Her gallery kept her busy, but she promised to dig around, ask subtle questions at family dinners. Vivian wasn't close to Susan's sisters by blood, but worlds apart in personality. Susan controlled everything, Vivian flowed free. She left with a plan, keep your head down, document everything. That night, I sneaked downstairs after everyone slept. The desktop hummed in the dark living room. I logged in, scanned recent activity. Files accessed last night under Natalie's account. My stomach twisted, she'd lied. But deleting history was easy, no direct evidence. Then I remembered the camera. A small motion-activated one hidden in a bookshelf teddy bear. I'd bought it cheap online last year to watch Scout when he had anxiety spells alone. It recorded to an SD card, no Wi-Fi, simple but effective. Faced the desk perfectly. If Natalie did it while I was out, it might have caught her. Pulse racing, I grabbed the bear, popped the card into my old laptop. Footage loaded, time-stamped the night before. There she was, Natalie glancing around, slipping to the desk, opening my folder, selecting all apps, hitting delete. No hesitation, just quick clicks, then log out. She even smiled faintly as she left. I replayed it, frozen in shock. Proof clear as day. But if I showed parents now, they might twist it, claim accident. I needed strategy. Called Owen Mitchell, my boyfriend since junior year. He picked up, whispering, "Hey babe, you okay?" "No," I said. "Explain everything." He listened, then said, "That's messed up. I'll come over tomorrow. We can back up the footage." Owen was steady, studying engineering, always logical. We'd met in math club, him with his easy grin, me with my notebooks. He didn't judge my family drama, just supported. Morning brought more pressure. Susan knocked on my door, saying time to talk seriously. They gathered again in the living room, Natalie looking smug. "We love you, Sophia, but this irresponsibility can't continue," Susan said. "Admit you messed up and we'll help with community college apps," Kenneth added. "It's for the best. Natalie's thriving at state school, you can too locally." I clenched fists. "Why believe her over me?" "Because she's been reliable," Susan replied. "You've been withdrawn, secretive," Natalie chimed in. "Yeah, you've been on that computer obsessively. Maybe you deleted them by accident." Her lie hung heavy. I wanted to scream about the video but held back. Instead, I said, "Fine, I'll think about it." They nodded, satisfied, isolating me further. Scout sensed my frustration, whining as I returned to my room. Vivian texted later, "Got anything?" I replied, "Yes, video proof." She said, "Smart girl, bring it to me. We'll plan." Owen arrived that afternoon under pretense of homework help. Parents let him in, wary but polite. In my room, he hugged me tight, saying, "We'll get through this." We copied the footage to his drive, discussed next steps. He suggested involving a lawyer if needed, but first confront with backup. His calm grounded me. Owen wasn't dramatic, he analyzed like an engineer. Natalie knocked once, asking what we were doing. "Studying," I said sharply. She lingered, then left, eyes narrowed. Isolation dragged on, a week total. Parents monitored me, no internet access beyond schoolwork. Natalie paraded her helpfulness, assisting at the hotel, earning praise. I overheard Susan telling Kenneth, "Sophia needs this lesson. Natalie's our future for the business." It stung, confirming my fears. The hotel was their legacy and Natalie, the heir apparent. My scholarship dreams threatened that if I left for a top school, she'd face more pressure. GANAT made sense now. Scout stayed by my side, his presence a reminder of loyalty. Vivian snuck over twice more, bringing snacks and advice. She's always been my rock, divorced, young, child-free, choosing art over convention. We plotted showing the video in a neutral setting, maybe with her present. Owen backed it up, offering to edit timestamps for clarity. His support felt solid, unlike my family's conditional love. As days passed, anger turned to resolve. They expected me to cave, disappear quietly. But with proof in hand, I wouldn't. The meeting they planned for tomorrow would change everything. I lay awake, Scout's breathing steady, thinking of the fallout. No turning back now. Family dynamics sharpened in my mind. Susan ran the hotel with iron efficiency, scheduling everything, including our lives. Kenneth handled finances quietly, avoiding confrontations. Natalie manipulated that dynamic, playing victim or hero as needed. Me? I adapted, stayed silent to keep peace. But silence bred resentment. Scout nudged my hand as if saying, "Fight back." Vivian's words echoed, "You deserve better." Owen texted goodnight with a heart emoji, his way of saying, "I'm here." Tomorrow I'd face them not as the overlooked daughter, but as someone with truth on her side. The isolation ended, but the real battle began. The isolation stretched into its second week, and my doubts about Natalie grew sharper. Every time I heard her laughter downstairs with Susan, it fueled my suspicion. Why would she delete my applications? It wasn't random, she'd always resented my independence. My drive to leave Asheville for something bigger. As a kid, she'd steal my toys, blame me for breaking them, and parents bought it. Now this felt like an upgrade aimed at keeping me trapped. Scout paced the room with me, his nails clicking on the hardwood floor. He sensed my agitation, nudging my leg with his nose as if to say, "Hang in there." I scratched his ears, whispering, "Good boy, we'll expose this." The camera footage burned in my mind, clear evidence. But I couldn't risk showing it yet. Parents might dismiss it, or worse, delete it themselves to protect Natalie. I needed allies. Owen texted daily, checking in with encouragement. He wasn't the type to panic, always calm, plotting solutions, like fixing a broken circuit. Vivian, too, sent messages full of wit, like, "Don't let them dim your spark, kid. You're the firecracker here." That afternoon, Susan came to my room, tray in hand, with a sandwich and apple. "Eat up," she said, setting it down. "We need to talk about your future." Her tone was firm, the one she used at the hotel when dealing with difficult guests. I sat on the bed, Scout at my feet, watching her warily. "Future?" I asked. "You mean the one Natalie ruined?" Susan sighed, crossing her arms. "Stop blaming her, Sophia. This is on you, irresponsible with your work. Admit it, and we can move forward. Help at the hotel, full-time, apply locally later." Kenneth joined her in the doorway, nodding. "It's practical," he said. "Natalie's set to inherit the business one day, but you could assist." His voice trailed off, avoiding my gaze as usual. "Assist?" I echoed. "Like a sidekick? I've got scholarship potential for a real degree." Susan's eyes flashed. "Dreams are fine, but reality bites. If you keep accusing Natalie, we'll cut support completely, no allowance, no car privileges. Think about that." They left the threat hanging. Scout growled softly after they closed the door, his loyalty fierce. I paced again, anger bubbling. Cut support? They'd always favored Natalie with extras, new clothes, trips to concerts. Me? Hand-me-downs and lectures. This wasn't just punishment, it was control. Owen snuck over that evening under cover of delivering school notes. Parents let him in briefly, Susan eyeing us suspiciously. In my room, he pulled me into a hug, whispering, "I got your back." We sat on the floor, Scout between us, as I showed him the footage on my laptop. He watched intently, then whistled low. "That's cold," he said. Deliberate, no doubt. "Let's copy it to my drive, add timestamps for proof." His fingers flew on the keyboard, efficient as ever. Owen's engineering mind shone here. He backed up files, encrypted them, even suggested watermarking. "Why do this?" he asked, pausing. "Jealousy," I replied. My apps included scholarship essays highlighting my independence. If I leave, Natalie's the sole heir under pressure. He nodded. "Makes sense. She's always competed with you subtly. Remember last Christmas when she one-upped your gift?" I laughed bitterly. "Yeah. Vivian thinks we need a plan. Show her the video first." Owen agreed, adding, "Let's loop in a lawyer if it escalates." His practicality balanced my emotions, keeping me grounded. We talked strategy for hours, Scout dozing contentedly. Owen left with a kiss, promising tomorrow we'll refine this. Vivian arrived the next morning, pretending to drop off art supplies for a hotel event. Susan welcomed her, chatting about business while I slipped out to her car. In her cabin, surrounded by canvases and incense, we reviewed the footage. She leaned forward, glasses perched on her nose. "Clear as crystal," she said. Natalie's face says it all, smug satisfaction. But confronting at home risks them ganging up. Do it neutral, maybe with witnesses. Her voice carried that wise edge honed from years navigating family rifts. Vivian wasn't just supportive. She was strategic, drawing from her own past. Divorced at 30, she rebuilt alone, turning passion for art into a gallery. Susan resented that freedom, calling it selfish. Now Vivian used it to guide me. We brainstormed over tea, her laughing at absurd ideas like projecting the video on the hotel wall. "Seriously though," she said, "involve Owen, he's solid. And consider legal advice. Breaking into files could be seen as invasion, but proof's proof." I nodded, feeling empowered. Scout, who'd come along, sniffed her rugs happily. Vivian petted him, saying loyal ones like him remind us who's real family. Back home, the pressure mounted. Kenneth knocked that evening, sitting awkwardly on my bed. "Sophia," he started, "we don't want this dragging on. Admit the mistake, and it's over. No more grounding." His tone pleaded, almost like he knew something was off, but couldn't admit it. "Dad," I said, "why always believe her? Remember when she lost the hotel keys and blamed me? You grounded me then, too." He shifted uncomfortably, saying Natalie's sensitive needs support. "You're stronger, can handle it." "Stronger?" I retorted. "Or just easier to ignore?" He stood muttering, "Think about the family," and left. Scout whined, sensing my hurt. Kenneth's passivity frustrated me most. He saw the imbalance but never challenged Susan. That night, I journaled everything, dates, dialogues, building a timeline. Owen called later, his voice soothing. "Progress?" he asked. "Yeah, Vivian has the footage safe." He shared his day fixing a robot for class, lightening the mood. Owen's optimism was infectious, reminding me life beyond this existed. Isolation hit week 3 and desperation crept in. Susan announced at breakfast, delivered to my room, that if I didn't confess by weekend, they'd cancel my phone plan. Natalie hovered, smirking as she passed. "Enjoy your cave," she whispered. Her taunt ignited fury. I texted Vivian and Owen from my hidden old phone. "Emergency meet." We convened at Vivian's gallery after hours, art pieces casting shadows. Owen brought snacks, Vivian brewed coffee. We watched the footage again, analyzing. "Look at her glance," Owen pointed. "Nervous, but calculated." Vivian nodded, adding Susan will defend her to the end, but Kenneth might crack. Plan: copy to multiple drives, then confront with a mediator, perhaps a family counselor. But I wanted direct. Show them the video in the living room, watch their reactions. Owen cautioned emotions high could backfire. Vivian agreed, but said truth bombs work best up close. We debated pros cons, Scout playing with a toy Vivian kept for him. Finally decided, Vivian hosts a family talk at her cabin, reveal there. Neutral ground her presence as buffer. Owen volunteered to film discreetly for record. His tech savvy shone, suggesting apps for backup. As we wrapped, Vivian hugged me, saying, "You're brave, kid." Owen walked me home, hand in hand, whispering love. "You will win." The threats escalated. Susan stormed in one afternoon, waving my old report cards. "See this?" she said. Consistent but not standout like Natalie's. "Accept community college or you're on your own." Her control-peaked voice sharp. "Mom," I said, "this isn't about grades, it's sabotage." She laughed dismissively. "Paranoia doesn't suit you. Focus on reality." She left, slamming the door. Scout barked protectively. Kenneth followed later, softer. "We worry about you," he said. "Natalie's concerned, too." "Concerned?" I scoffed. "She's the problem." He hesitated, then said, "Families stick together." His weakness showed fear of rocking the boat. That night, Owen sneaked in through the window like a teen movie. We laughed quietly, tension breaking. He updated backups, secure on cloud. Talked dreams, him engineering me environment. His support felt real, no conditions. We kissed Scout, watching amused. Vivian set the meeting for Saturday. She called Susan, framing it as reconciliation tea. Susan agreed, wary but curious. Natalie tagged along, probably to spy. I prepared, mentally rehearsing words. Owen met me early at Vivian's, helping set up laptop. Vivian arranged chairs and her living room teas ready. Scout sat by me, alert. Family arrived, Susan leading Kenneth, trailing Natalie, texting. Vivian greeted warmly, ushering them in. "Thanks for coming," she said. "Sophia has something important." Susan frowned. "What's this?" I stood, heart racing. The truth about my applications. Natalie shifted uneasily. I played the video on the screen. There she was, deleting files, glancing sneaky. Room silenced. Susan's face paled. Kenneth stared. Natalie blurted, "It was a joke, didn't mean to submit." "Joke?" I said. "You lied, watched me suffer." Vivian interjected, "Proofs here." "Discuss." Chaos erupted. Susan defending Natalie, claiming accident, Kenneth silent. Owen recorded discreetly. Natalie cracked, admitting jealousy, "Your scholarships make me look bad for the hotel." Parents reeled, Susan whispering, "We protected the family." "Protected her," I corrected. "At my expense." The video exposed everything raw, undeniable. They left in disarray, Susan fuming, Kenneth defeated, Natalie tearful. Vivian hugged me, saying, "First step done." Owen high-fived, proof worked. Back home, isolation lifted, but tension thickened. Parents avoided me, Natalie sulked. I knew confrontation was just beginning, but with evidence solid, I felt unstoppable. Scout wagged his tail as if proud. The video wasn't just files, it was my freedom ticket. The drive back from Vivian's cabin felt charged with unspoken victory. Susan gripped the wheel tightly, her knuckles white, while Kenneth stared out the window, silent as ever. Natalie sat in the back, sniffling occasionally, but I caught her glancing at me with a mix of anger and fear. Scout rode with Vivian and Owen, who'd offered to drop him home later, a small mercy amid the chaos. No one spoke until we pulled into the driveway. Susan turned off the engine, then faced me, her voice low and strained. "Sophia, that video proves nothing. It could be edited, a misunderstanding." I met her gaze, unflinching. "Misunderstanding?" "Natalie's actions were deliberate, and you knew deep down, but chose to ignore it." Kenneth murmured, "Let's calm down," but Susan snapped at him to stay out. Natalie burst into tears, saying, "I didn't mean for it to go this far. I just wanted you to stay, help with the hotel." Her confession hung heavy, laced with self-pity. "Wanted me to stay?" I said. "Or trap me so you look better?" The favoritism ends here. Vivian had warned me they'd deflect, and she was right. Susan's control cracked, revealing desperation to maintain the family facade. We entered the house, tension thick like fog. Susan paced the kitchen, demanding I delete the footage for the family's sake. "Think about our reputation," she said. "The hotel could suffer if this leaks." Guests talk, neighbors gossip. Kenneth tried mediating, adding, "We can fix this quietly, apply late to local schools." His passivity irked me more than ever, always the peacemaker at my expense. Natalie hovered by the counter, wiping her eyes, but her sobs felt performative, the kind she'd used as a kid to get her way. I stood firm, saying no more lies. "The video stays, and I'll decide what to do next." Owen texted from Vivian's asking if I needed backup. His concern warmed me. He wasn't just a boyfriend, but a partner in this mess, offering logic when emotions ran high. Vivian called too, her voice steady, saying, "Stand your ground, kid, they've underestimated you too long." Scout would be home soon, she added, knowing he grounded me. That night's sleep evaded me. I replayed Natalie's admission jealousy over my potential success, threatening her role as heir. The hotel their pride built from scratch, now a symbol of division. Morning brought escalation. Susan confronted me at breakfast, no Natalie or Kenneth in sight. She slid a paper across the table, a written apology from Natalie scripted neatly. "Sign this," she said, agreeing it was a mistake. "We'll move on." I pushed it back. An apology doesn't erase weeks of isolation or lost opportunities. "Where's my future in this?" Susan's eyes hardened. "Your future is here with us, family first." But family meant sacrifice for you, not her. She stood abruptly, saying, "If you pursue this, you'll regret it. We'll cut ties financially, emotionally." The threat landed heavy, but I saw through it, control slipping. Kenneth appeared, then pulling her aside, whispering. They argued in hushed tones, him urging compromise, her resisting. Natalie emerged later, hair tied back, looking remorseful, but her eyes darted. "Sorry," she muttered. "I panicked about the business. Dad said you'd understand." "Understand?" I replied. "You sabotaged my dreams out of fear. No forgiveness yet." She teared up again, but this time it felt genuine, cracks in her manipulative shell showing vulnerability. Owen arrived mid-morning with Scout, who bounded in tail wagging, breaking the ice momentarily. Parents tolerated him, but Susan eyed the bag he carried, backups of the video. "We need to talk," he said calmly. "As an outsider, I see the damage. Let's resolve without lawyers." The family huddled in the living room again, echoes of past meetings, where Natalie shone and I faded. Owen sat beside me, Scout at our feet. Vivian joined via video call, her face on my laptop, adding weight. Susan started defensive, claiming overreaction. Kenneth nodded along, but his fidgeting betrayed doubt. Natalie admitted more. I'd overheard parents discussing inheritance, the hotel to me, if I proved reliable, but Sophia's scholarships made me look unreliable. Twist hit hard, parents orchestrated partly. Susan denied it, saying we encouraged Natalie to step up. But her voice wavered. Kenneth confessed quietly, "We thought pressuring you would build character, keep the family close." "Character?" I exploded. "By lying, isolating me?" Vivian interjected from the screen. "That's not parenting, it's manipulation." Owen added evidence shows intent deletion timestamps match Natalie's login. The room fell silent, proof undeniable. Susan's facade crumbled, tears forming. "We did it for unity," she whispered. "Unity meaning control," I corrected. Natalie broke down fully, sobbing. "I messed up, bad schools stressing me, the hotel looms." Her confession revealed layers, pressure, cracking her confident exterior into insecurity. But sympathy didn't erase betrayal. Decisions loomed. Vivian suggested mediation, but I pushed for consequences. Share the video with school counselors. Natalie's college could investigate academic sabotage. Susan pleaded. "No, it'll ruin her." "Ruin her? Like she tried with me?" Kenneth offered compromise. "We'll help reapply, pay fees." But trust shattered, I refused. Owen backed me, saying actions need accountability. We adjourned, tense, parents retreating Natalie to her room. Scout stayed close, his presence comforting amid fallout. That afternoon, I packed essentials, clothes, laptop, Scout's toys. Vivian offered her spare room temporarily. Owen helped load the car, his encouragement steady. "You're strong," he said. "This is your fresh start." Parents watched from the window, Susan's face etched with regret, Kenneth's with resignation. Natalie approached as I loaded Scout. "Please, don't," she said. I paused. "You chose this, now live with it." She nodded tearfully, stepping back. Driving away, the house shrank in the rear view, a chapter closing. No dramatic farewell, just quiet severance. Settling at Vivian's felt liberating. Her cabin buzzed with creativity paintings, everywhere, herbal scents soothing. Scout explored happily, chasing leaves in the yard. Vivian made dinner pasta with fresh veggies, chatting about her gallery shows. She wasn't just aunt, but mentor, sharing stories of breaking free from family expectations. That night, I reapplied to colleges using backups Owen had saved. Essays flowed stronger, infused with recent resilience. Owen visited daily, our bond deepening through crisis. He wasn't flashy but reliable, fixing my laptop, planning dates to local hikes. Weeks passed, applications submitted. Parents called once, Susan's voice cracked, begging return. "We miss you," she said. "Miss the control," I replied. Kenneth added, Natalie's struggling counseling started. "Good for her," I said, "but I'm done." Hung up, heart heavy but resolved. No reconciliation, betrayal too deep. Natalie texted apologies, but I blocked, focusing forward. Consequences unfolded. I shared the video anonymously with Natalie's school advisor, citing academic interference. Investigation followed. Natalie faced probation, community service, her record tarnished. Susan and Kenneth's reputation dipped. Hotel guests whispered after rumors spread in our small town. Business slowed. They argued more, Kenneth pushing for change, Susan resisting. Vivian heard through grapevine. They separated briefly, Kenneth moving to a motel. Family unit fractured as predicted. I thrived at Vivian's, taking online courses, walking Scout daily. Owen and I grew closer, him proposing a joint project app for pet monitoring, inspired by the camera. His innovation sparked mine. Scholarship news came months later, full ride to an Ivy League environmental program. Excitement surged, my future reclaimed. Vivian celebrated with wine, toasting independence. Scout barked happily, part of the joy. Reflecting now, I see the lessons clear. Family isn't always sanctuary, sometimes it's the storm.
You're terminated, effective immediately. I'm giving your position to my golf buddy, Trevor. Frankly, you're too emotional for leadership. I stared at the text message glowing on my phone screen, the words blurring as thousands of screaming fans sang along around me. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here I was, sitting in the VIP section at Taylor Swift's Eras Tour in Atlanta, Georgia, when my career just exploded in my hands. My name is Danielle Russo, and I'm 34 years old. Or rather, I was the director of public relations at Suncaster Bioworks until approximately 30 seconds ago. For the past decade, I had built their communications department from absolutely nothing into an award-winning operation that managed some of the most high-profile pharmaceutical campaigns in the Southeast. I glanced to my left, where Patricia Henderson, a member of Suncaster's board of directors, was swaying to the music, completely oblivious to the nuclear bomb that had just detonated in my professional life. She had invited me tonight as a thank you for the flawless product launch I had orchestrated 3 months ago. The one that brought in $42 million in pre-orders and landed us on the cover of 3 industry magazines. The stadium lights pulsed in rhythm with the beat, but all I could see was the smug face of my boss, Director of Operations Gregory Walsh. He had been gunning for me ever since I refused to approve his ridiculous proposal to sponsor his country club's golf tournament with company funds. Apparently, integrity made me difficult to work with. Patricia leaned over, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Isn't this incredible? I can't believe you got us these seats." I forced a smile, my mind racing. "Actually, Patricia, I have something interesting to show you." I angled my phone toward her, watching her expression change as she read Gregory's message. Her face went from confusion to shock to absolute fury in the span of 5 seconds. "He fired you? Tonight? During this?" She gestured toward the spectacular stage production around us. "Apparently so." I kept my voice steady, though inside I was calculating the catastrophic damage this would cause. 3 major clients had specifically requested to work only with me, 2 product launches were scheduled for next month under my direct supervision. And Gregory wanted to hand it all over to Trevor Morrison, a guy whose biggest professional achievement was organizing a charity golf tournament that raised $12,000. The music swelled around us, but Patricia was no longer paying attention to the show. She was scrolling through my phone, reading the message again, her face growing darker with each word. I could practically see the gears turning in her head as she processed the implications of Gregory's impulsive decision. Looking back, I should have seen this coming. Gregory Walsh had always resented that I reported directly to the CEO while he had to work his way up through traditional channels. When I was hired 10 years ago, Suncaster BioWorks was a small research company with brilliant scientists but zero media presence. They brought me in straight from graduate school with a degree in communications and a hunger to prove myself. I built everything from scratch: the press protocols, the client relationship systems, the crisis management procedures that saved the company millions during the contamination scare 2 years ago. I had personally cultivated relationships with journalists, regulatory officials, and industry leaders who trusted me implicitly. My client retention rate was 96%, and my campaigns consistently exceeded engagement targets by at least 30%. But Gregory saw my success differently. To him, I was the upstart who bypassed the traditional hierarchy. He made it clear during every interaction that he considered my position unnecessary, a fancy title for what he called writing press releases and schmoozing reporters. Never mind that those press releases had generated over $200 million in positive coverage value, or that my schmoozing had prevented 3 potential scandals from ever reaching the media. The tension escalated 6 months ago when Gregory started pushing Trevor Morrison, his golf partner and former college roommate, for a position in my department. Trevor had a business degree and exactly 0 experience in pharmaceutical communications. His previous job was managing social media for a local restaurant chain, where his biggest crisis involved a negative Yelp review about cold French fries. Trevor brings fresh perspective, Gregory had argued during our last departmental meeting. Sometimes experience can make people rigid in their thinking. I knew what he was really saying. Trevor would be malleable, grateful, and most importantly loyal to Gregory, instead of the company's actual interests. When I politely declined to create a position for someone so unqualified, Gregory's attitude toward me shifted from professional indifference to active hostility. He started excluding me from key meetings, questioning my budget requests, and undermining my authority with junior staff members. Last month, he suggested to CEO Robert Chen that my department could be streamlined for efficiency, corporate speak for cutting my position and distributing my responsibilities among people who would report to him. Patricia had witnessed some of these power plays during board meetings, which probably explained why she looked ready to commit murder right now. She understood exactly what Gregory was attempting: a hostile takeover of the department I had built through a decade of 18-hour days and sleepless nights managing crises. The crowd around us erupted as the opening notes of another song began, but the celebration felt hollow now. Everything I had worked for was crumbling, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. The worst part was realizing how perfectly Gregory had timed this. Friday night, during a concert, when the executive offices were empty, and I couldn't immediately respond or defend myself. By Monday morning, Trevor would already be sitting in my office, fielding calls from my clients, making decisions about campaigns I had spent months developing. My phone buzzed again. This time it was an email from Human Resources with the subject line, "Immediate termination. Action required." The message was professionally cold, outlining the return of company property, final paycheck details, and a reminder about my non-disclosure agreement. No mention of my 10 years of service, the awards I had won for the company, or the relationships I had built that were worth millions in business value. I scrolled down to see that Gregory had already sent an announcement to the entire company. Effective immediately, Trevor Morrison will be assuming leadership of the Public Relations Department. Please join me in welcoming Trevor to his new role and thanking Danielle for her service. Thanking me for my service, like I was a departing intern instead of the person who had single-handedly elevated Suncaster's industry reputation from unknown startup to pharmaceutical powerhouse. The dismissive tone made my blood pressure spike, but I forced myself to remain calm. Patricia was watching me carefully, and I needed to handle this with the professionalism that Gregory clearly lacked. "Danielle, this is completely unacceptable," Patricia said, her voice tight with controlled anger. "The board wasn't consulted about this decision. Gregory doesn't have the authority to terminate department heads without approval." I nodded, though I wasn't entirely surprised that Gregory had overstepped his boundaries. He had been acting increasingly autonomous lately, making decisions that should have required board oversight. The golf tournament sponsorship he had pushed so aggressively was just one example of his tendency to prioritize personal interests over company policy. "What's really concerning," I said carefully, "is that 3 of our biggest clients specifically contracted to work with me personally. The Hernandez Pharmaceutical account, the Morrison Medical Partnership, and the entire Westbrook research campaign all have clauses requiring my direct involvement." Patricia's eyes widened as the full implications hit her. "Those accounts represent what, 40% of our annual revenue? Closer to 55% when you factor in the renewal contracts scheduled for next quarter." I showed her my phone again, this time opening my email app. "I'm already getting messages from client contacts asking if the rumors about personnel changes are true." The concert continued around us, but I could see Patricia's mind working through the crisis Gregory had just created. Firing me wasn't just a personnel decision. It was potentially a company-ending catastrophe. Without my established relationships and institutional knowledge, those clients could walk away, taking their multi-million-dollar contracts with them. "We need to call an emergency board meeting," Patricia said, pulling out her own phone. "This situation requires immediate intervention before it destroys everything you've built." Sunday night, I couldn't sleep. I kept checking my phone, watching as client after client reached out with increasingly urgent questions. The rumors were spreading faster than I had anticipated, and Gregory's hasty announcement had created exactly the kind of uncertainty that made corporate partners nervous. At 6 a.m., I received a call from Janet Hernandez, CEO of Hernandez Pharmaceuticals, and my biggest client. "Danielle, I need to know what's happening. My assistant says someone named Trevor Morrison called claiming to be taking over our account." I chose my words carefully, knowing that one wrong statement could trigger a contractual review. "There have been some internal changes at Suncaster, Janet. I'm not currently in a position to discuss specifics, but I wanted you to hear from me directly that your account's continuity is my primary concern. Danielle, you know I trust you completely, but my contract is with you personally. If you're not managing our campaign, we need to reassess our partnership immediately." By 8 a.m., I had received similar calls from Morrison Medical and Westbrook Research. Each conversation followed the same pattern: initial confusion, growing concern, and finally, thinly veiled threats to terminate their contracts if I wasn't involved. I documented every conversation, knowing that Patricia would need this information for the emergency board meeting she had scheduled for Monday morning. Trevor Morrison, meanwhile, seemed blissfully unaware of the crisis he was inheriting. According to my former assistant Kelly, who texted me updates throughout the weekend, Trevor had spent Saturday afternoon measuring my office for new furniture and asking IT to change all the department passwords. He had also scheduled a meet and greet with the junior staff for Monday morning, apparently planning to introduce himself as their new leader. Gregory's confidence was almost impressive in its stupidity. He had genuinely believed that firing me would solve his territorial disputes without considering the practical consequences. In his mind, public relations was just glorified marketing, something any competent business graduate could handle with minimal transition time. I spent Sunday afternoon preparing a comprehensive handover document, not out of obligation, but as protection for myself and the junior staff who didn't deserve to suffer for Gregory's vendetta. The document outlined every active campaign, client preference, ongoing crisis management protocol, and scheduled deliverable for the next 6 months. It was 47 pages of detailed institutional knowledge that Trevor would never be able to replicate. But the document also served another purpose. It demonstrated exactly how much Gregory didn't understand about my role. Every page highlighted relationships, expertise, and ongoing commitments that couldn't simply be transferred to an inexperienced replacement. When the board reviewed it, they would see immediately that Gregory had essentially dynamited the foundation of a department that generated 60% of Suncaster's positive media coverage. Monday morning arrived with a text from Patricia. Emergency board meeting at 9 a.m. Come prepared to present your side. This is far from over. I dressed carefully in my best navy suit, the one I wore for high-stakes client presentations. If I was going to fight for my career, I wanted to look like the consummate professional Gregory claimed I wasn't. I arrived at Suncaster's headquarters 30 minutes early, using my still-active building access to retrieve files from my office before Trevor arrived. The sight of my workspace was jarring. My industry awards had been packed into boxes, my client photos removed from the walls, and my personalized coffee mug replaced with a generic Suncaster tumbler. Trevor had already started making the space his own, which felt like a violation of something sacred. At 8:45 a.m., I positioned myself in the conference room adjacent to the boardroom, reviewing my notes one final time. Whatever happened in the next hour would determine whether Gregory's impulsive power grab succeeded or whether justice would finally catch up with his reckless ambition. The emergency board meeting began with Patricia Henderson placing my termination text message on the conference table like evidence in a murder trial. The 7 board members read it in silence, their expressions ranging from confusion to outrage as the implications became clear. Gregory fired our director of public relations via text message, Patricia announced, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent 20 years building corporate empires. During a concert, without board consultation, and he plans to replace her with someone whose qualifications include managing a restaurant's social media account. Gregory Walsh sat at the far end of the table, his usual confidence visibly shaken. He had clearly expected this to be a routine personnel announcement, not a tribunal examining his decision-making competence. Beside him, CEO Robert Chen looked like he was developing a migraine in real time. I made a strategic decision based on departmental efficiency, Gregory began, but Patricia cut him off immediately. Efficiency? Let me share some efficiency metrics with you. She opened a folder containing the documents I had prepared. Danielle Russo generated $234 million in positive media coverage value last year. Her client retention rate was 96%. She prevented 3 potential crises from becoming public scandals, saving us an estimated $50 million in damage control costs. Board member Thomas Wright leaned forward. What are Trevor Morrison's qualifications? Gregory's face flushed. Trevor brings fresh perspective and strategic thinking to... Answer the question, Wright interrupted. What is his experience in pharmaceutical communications? He has a business degree and strong communication skills. That's not what I asked. The room fell silent as Gregory struggled to articulate Trevor's non-existent qualifications. Finally, he admitted, Trevor doesn't have direct pharmaceutical experience, but he's eager to learn and brings valuable outside perspective. Patricia smiled coldly. Outside perspective. Is that what you call it when 3 of our biggest clients are threatening to terminate their contracts because they specifically contracted to work with Danielle personally? This was news to Gregory, and his face went pale. What clients? Hernandez Pharmaceuticals, Morrison Medical, and Westbrook Research, I said, speaking for the first time. Combined annual contract value of $37 million, with renewal options worth an additional $42 million over the next 3 years. Robert Chen finally found his voice. Gregory, please tell me you reviewed the contractual obligations before making this decision. The silence that followed was deafening. Gregory clearly had no idea that my client relationships were legally protected through specific performance clauses. He had assumed that firing me would automatically transfer all client relationships to Trevor, like changing the name on a business card. Board member Sarah Kim pulled out her phone. I'm getting calls from industry contacts asking if Suncaster is facing financial difficulties. Apparently, word is spreading that we've made sudden leadership changes in critical departments. The pharmaceutical industry is incredibly relationship-driven, I explained. Trust takes years to build and can be destroyed overnight. My clients don't just work with Suncaster. They work with me specifically because they trust my judgment, my expertise, and my track record of protecting their interests. Patricia nodded. Which brings us to the real question. Gregory, did you fire Danielle because of performance issues or because she refused to approve your golf tournament sponsorship proposal? Gregory's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. The golf tournament proposal had been thoroughly documented in board minutes, including my professional recommendation against using company funds for Gregory's personal networking events. I think, Robert Chen said slowly, we need to discuss damage control immediately. The question isn't whether Gregory made a mistake. It's whether we can fix it before our stock price reflects these client defections. Robert Chen stood at the head of the conference table, his face grave as he addressed the board. Ladies and gentlemen, we're facing a crisis entirely of our own making. Gregory's decision has put our most valuable client relationships at risk and potentially violated contractual obligations worth tens of millions of dollars. Gregory made one last desperate attempt to defend his actions. I maintain that this was a necessary restructuring decision. Danielle was resistant to new ideas and difficult to work with when implementing strategic changes. Stop. Patricia's voice cut through the room like a blade. Let's address this resistance to new ideas. Danielle, please tell the board about Gregory's most recent strategic suggestion. I opened my portfolio and pulled out the proposal Gregory had submitted 3 weeks earlier. Gregory requested approval for Suncaster to sponsor his country club's annual golf tournament at a cost of $75,000. His justification was that it would provide networking opportunities with potential clients. And your professional assessment? Robert asked. I recommended against it for several reasons. First, the demographic attending Gregory's country club doesn't align with our target market. We're a pharmaceutical research company, not a luxury consumer brand. Second, $75,000 represents approximately 15% of my entire annual marketing budget, which would require cutting other proven initiatives. Third, the optics of spending that much on a golf tournament while we're asking employees to accept smaller raises due to budget constraints seemed problematic. Thomas Wright nodded approvingly. That sounds like exactly the kind of strategic thinking we pay her to provide. Gregory's face reddened. She consistently undermines management decisions and questions authority. She questions spending company money on your personal hobby, Patricia interrupted. That's called doing her job. Sarah Kim looked up from her phone with alarming news. I'm getting reports that Hernandez Pharmaceuticals just issued a statement saying they're reviewing their partnership options with Suncaster. Their stock price has already dropped 3% on speculation about their pipeline disruptions. The room erupted in urgent whispers as board members processed the immediate financial implications. Hernandez Pharmaceuticals represented Suncaster's largest single account, and any disruption to their partnership would devastate quarterly earnings. Robert Chen slumped in his chair. How long do we have before this becomes a public relations nightmare? It already is, I said quietly. Industry publications monitor partnership announcements closely. By tomorrow morning, every pharmaceutical communications firm in the Southeast will know that Suncaster made sudden leadership changes in their PR department. Our competitors will use this instability to approach our clients with retention offers. The gravity of the situation finally seemed to penetrate Gregory's delusions of competence. Maybe we can offer Trevor some additional training. Training? Wright laughed bitterly. Gregory, Danielle has 10 years of specialized expertise and established relationships that took decades to build. You can't create that with a weekend seminar. Patricia leaned forward. Here's what's going to happen. Gregory, you're going to personally call Trevor Morrison and explain that there's been a change in plans. Then you're going to draft a company-wide retraction of your premature announcement. But I already promised him the position. Then you'll explain that you made a promise you didn't have the authority to keep, Robert said firmly. This board has ultimate authority over department head appointments, and we're exercising that authority now. The room fell silent as the reality of Gregory's situation became clear. He had overplayed his hand spectacularly, turning what should have been a routine power struggle into a company-threatening crisis. "Danielle," Patricia said, turning to me with a slight smile, "I believe we have some offer negotiations to discuss." Tuesday morning, I walked back into Suncaster Bioworks with a spring in my step and a significantly improved employment contract in my briefcase. The emergency board meeting had concluded with Gregory's immediate suspension pending review, Trevor Morrison's hasty dismissal before he could cause further damage, and my reinstatement with a 20% salary increase plus equity compensation. But my real victory wasn't financial. It was professional vindication. The first person I encountered was Kelly, my former assistant, who was practically bouncing with excitement. "Danielle, everyone's been asking when you'd be back." Trevor lasted exactly 36 hours before he accidentally deleted the master client contact database. I couldn't help but smile. Accidentally. He was trying to streamline the system and somehow managed to corrupt 3 years' worth of meticulously organized contact information. IT spent all of yesterday recreating it from backup files. As I walked through the department I had built from nothing, junior staff members approached with expressions of relief and barely contained joy. The past 4 days had shown them exactly what my institutional knowledge and leadership were worth. Without my guidance, they had struggled with basic client communications and nearly missed 2 critical campaign deadlines. My office had been hastily restored to its original configuration, though I noticed Gregory's personal items were conspicuously absent from the adjacent director's suite. Patricia had mentioned during our contract negotiations that Gregory's future with the company was under evaluation, which was corporate speak for updating his resume. I spent the morning fielding calls from clients who were relieved to hear directly from me that the personnel transition had been resolved. Janet Hernandez was particularly blunt. "Danielle, that Trevor person called me 3 times yesterday asking basic questions about our product pipeline. It was like explaining quantum physics to a golden retriever." By noon, word had spread throughout the pharmaceutical industry that Suncaster had restructured its recent organizational changes. Stock price recovered, client confidence stabilized, and normal operations resumed. The true extent of Gregory's downfall became clear over the following weeks. The board's investigation revealed a pattern of questionable decisions and ethical lapses that extended far beyond my termination. His expense reports showed numerous business dinners at his country club with people who had no apparent connection to Suncaster. He had also been pressuring vendors to sponsor his personal golf events in exchange for favorable contract considerations. Most damaging was the discovery that Gregory had promised Trevor Morrison my position 3 months before firing me, complete with a written agreement outlining salary and benefits. This proved premeditation and demonstrated that my termination was retaliatory rather than performance-based. Patricia called me into her office on a Friday afternoon with an update. "Gregory submitted his resignation yesterday. He's accepted a position with a small consulting firm in Tampa, Florida, significant step down from director level at a major pharmaceutical company." I felt a complex mix of satisfaction and professional disappointment. Gregory's vindictive behavior had created unnecessary chaos, but I took no pleasure in anyone's career destruction. "Trevor Morrison has also found new employment," Patricia continued with barely concealed amusement. "He's managing social media for a chain of pizza restaurants. Apparently, he decided pharmaceutical communications was too complicated for his skill set." The irony was perfect. Trevor had returned to exactly the type of role he was actually qualified for, while Gregory discovered that burning bridges in a specialized industry severely limited future opportunities. My real revenge wasn't orchestrating their downfall. It was simply excelling at my job while they demonstrated their incompetence. The contrast spoke for itself. That afternoon, I received a handwritten note from Robert Chen. "Danielle, Your professionalism during this crisis reminded everyone why strong leadership matters. Thank you for handling an impossible situation with grace. Sometimes the best revenge is just being excellent, while your enemies destroy themselves through their own poor choices. As I look toward the future, I realized that surviving Gregory's betrayal had actually strengthened my position within the company and industry. The board's confidence in my abilities was now unshakable. My client relationships had been tested and proven unbreakable, and my reputation for handling crises with integrity was stronger than ever. Sometimes the sweetest revenge is simply watching your enemy's own actions prove exactly why they never deserved the power they tried to steal from you.